All right, we're going to try to do this recording one more time. I came on earlier, but we had a little malfunction. Anyhow, that's how life goes sometimes. You gotta roll with the punches. Instead of getting pissed, sometimes you gotta celebrate. And that's what we're going to talk about today on this little podcast for a cup of kudos. You are listening to the Cup of Kudos Show, a podcast focused on sharing content filled with insight, motivation, inspiration, and sometimes a little spunk. So, hey everybody, it's Elizabeth Morosco. I hope you are having a beautiful day, a beautiful evening. Fall has definitely set in, and it's a good time for getting readjusted into some good thinking and some good vibes, especially on this Saturday evening. So, I want to talk to you just really quickly about going through a difficult time, and a quick reminder that during the storm, to learn to celebrate and learn to have the faith that the storm's going to pass too. So there's that image, I was talking about this earlier, of this painting of a couple that is dancing in the rain, and there's people holding umbrellas in the background, and they're just dancing away. But it's a beautiful image and reminder that even during the difficult times, to take the time to find joy and celebrate. And that's how you can find strength for persevering and getting through difficult times. So it's, part of life. We're all going to have struggles that we face, whatever it may be, some big, some small. But being in a place of joy can help while you're going through difficult times. There's a scripture, Romans 12:12. Go check it out. And it says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. The cool thing, I think, is that very first part, be joyful in hope. And it's not telling you have joy after you get what you're seeking. It's telling you to be joyful while you're in that moment of hope. And I think if we can find ways to implement that into our life, it can bring more peace and calmness while we're going through a storm. And storms are going to happen every day, some big, some small. But having this practice of being joyful, even when there is stress going on, it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it'll get. And there's always going to be things that try you to find, can you still be joyful while this struggle or this stress is going on? And that's why it's important to lean into being patient and having faithful prayer, because it will give you power to persevere during those difficult times. So, I just want to encourage that for you, is to stop looking at life just so much of just being in that crisis mode, and know that it's okay to take the time to pause and celebrate, and to do some things that are extraordinary to make you feel special and loved, so that it helps you, in terms of your mind, your body, and your spirit. And there's scientific research that shows that you can think yourself into sickness. And you can also think yourself into good health and wellness, starting by the way that you think, and also the way that you're treating yourself. Are you doing different things to pamper yourself and to bring goodness and nourishment to your mind, your body, and your spirit? And if not, what are things that you can do to start to make some of these changes, instead of leaving this void to be filled by something that's negative? Be proactive. And it could be something like, let's say that you are looking for a job and you're struggling and you're trying to find where you're going to get this new source of income. And your child comes home that same day with a report card with an A, gleaming great big 100%. And if you don't take the time to celebrate that joyful moment, even while you're going through your struggle, it becomes a waste of a gift. It's a gift. And those are the things you've got to be proactive to find sometimes, because it's easy to focus on the negative, and it's easy to fall back into that habit, especially if you're not surrounded by the right inner circle. And that inner circle starts with you, with your thoughts. So being proactive about caring for the thoughts that you have, including the way that you're treating yourself and talking to yourself. And, just taking it one step at a time. Moms can be really hard on themselves, not getting it right, not, being at 100%. And sometimes we'll remember the shortcomings instead of celebrating the accomplishments that are made. This goes for many dads too. Just like parenthood can be very demanding, but sometimes we may have a plate full and some things fall off the plate. It's important to remember the plate full that we accomplished instead of what fell off the plate or what's negative. You got to celebrate what was on that plate, because there's a lot of gifts. That gives you that nourishment to keep going on and seeking more goodness in your life and sharing it with other people, and then being able to do it just through the way that you're living. You don't have to go out and, minister to people on, happiness if you're just celebrating it yourself. People see it, they pick it up, and it inspires them just by the way you're living your life. There's this famous quote that was actually in a John Lennon song, but it originated from a cartoonist writer from Reader's Digest, Alan Saunders, and it reads, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." And this is so true. I mean, even earlier I was trying to do this podcast, and then all sorts of malarkey was breaking out, and I'm broadcasting live on a Saturday night. So I'm at home and trying to send some good vibes out there for a late Saturday night evening for people that might need it. But I had other plans that happened that wasn't something I was expecting. And it was, a little fire that I had to put out. But I could throw my hands up in defeat and think of, the struggles or the whatever, or look at it in terms of, hey, new opportunity, new learning, new whatever it might be. And I mean, that's a really small scale version of applying it. It could be something that you have that's going on even with a health crisis for you or your spouse or a loved one. And you can sit there and focus all on the prognosis, or start looking at what are some of the blessings that are coming through each day, whether it's people that you encounter at the hospital or the doctor's office, or these moments of hope. You've got to learn to celebrate and be joyful when you're in that moment of hope. And just lean into knowing that there's so much that you can learn while you're going through a struggle. In fact, they say oftentimes our greatest growth patterns happen as we overcome a difficulty or a struggle. It usually doesn't happen during the easy times. So while you're making all these plans and you're doing all this stuff and you're going along the journey, just enjoy some of the hiccups and new discoveries and new things that happen, and celebrate anyways. Don't get so caught up into, black and white that you lose the joy and the blessings that come when you celebrate, these given moments. Something really quick I just want to share with you is in, I don't even know which chapter it is in the Bible, but there's a story about Jesus going to visit somebody that had leprosy. And when he was there was a woman that took a bottle of perfume and poured it all over his head. And this bottle of perfume was incredibly expensive. It would be equal to 1 year's wages. So when she did this, the people that were witnessing started scruffling about and making negative comments of, what a waste. You've wasted that. It's terrible. You could have sold that perfume and you could have given it to the poor and you could have done this and you could have done that. And what a waste. And all those things are true. They could have sold the perfume and given it to the poor. There's always going to be struggles and difficulties that happen. There's always going to be, the need for helping others. However, there's also going to be a time for a need to celebrate and embrace some of these gifts because it gives power and substance in other ways. And that happened to be like the blessing that, if you want to call it, like her way of showing, great love and support and faith in him of like 1 year's wages to pour on him. And it was his blessing he was getting right before he was going to get, ultimately crucified. So, but some people would think that's crazy. Why would you pour all that all over him? He's going to go die. So much more than that. And it's the same thing with you. You're going to have a time that you're going through a difficulty and a struggle, and it will be, but you could do all these different things. At a certain point, you have to take your blessing and celebration so that you have the strength, the gifts that you need to sustain, to go to this next thing that you're going after, and to do it and not feel guilty about it. And not feel shamed that you are reaching into these new blessings, celebrate it, visualize that positive thing happening instead of just the negative, and ultimately in that story, we know what happens, but it wasn't a waste for her to pour that very expensive perfume all over his head. It was an anointing. It was beautiful. And part of that goes to, instead of sitting there and worrying about the problem, eventually things work out. So you've got to learn to be that blessing. There may be times that you have something that you can share to help others celebrate that may be a sacrifice to you, but it's for, goodness, and it's a remover of negativity in its own way by taking the time to celebrate and do it in a way that it's guilt-free. Those things will have a positive impact on the way that you think and the way that you live your life. So take the time and do it because you're worth celebrating. There will never be another you in this world. It's you. So celebrate it, especially when the storm's happening. It's okay to pause and do a oorah, it's okay. And not to feel bad about it. Sometimes we get so caught up into the gloom and doom of everything that's going on in the world that we think that, it's not okay to be a part of this goodness. And in reality, it is. It's good to take a break. It's good for you to celebrate with simple things in life. It could be, a mom that's worked all day. Take the time to go get a cup of coffee down the road, and you've earned that celebration. You should be able to do it and do it guilt-free. It could be going for a walk. It could be whatever. But the idea is to shift into a place of living with an attitude of gratitude and recognizing that there are these beautiful silver linings that happen when we're walking our storm. And just seek the goodness in each day and realize that you are beautifully, wonderfully made. And all of these worries aren't going to solve. All that time worrying is not going to solve the problem. But if you take the time to take your celebration and do things to celebrate life, it can give you strength and substance during your storm. So be joyful in hope. I love that. I'm gonna keep remembering that. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. A little bit of a recipe of how do you get through a total crap storm. I guess that's it, do that little bit. And it takes practice having faith. There may be times that, struggle's so big, you just don't even know how you can solve it. And all the people around you could be going in a different direction. But that's when you really lean into your faith and start finding things on your terms that can bring joy. And when you do that, it actually will affect all the people around you in a positive way. But if you're walking around with sadness and sorrow all the time, even while you're going through a storm, it's not good for you. And it's definitely not good for the people around you. And it takes practice. I know for myself, there's often times that I have to, mentally make sure that I'm staying in, good vibes. And then sometimes I have to do things to reset it. It could be, listening to happier music or going for a walk or, picking up a book that is positive or calling a friend who makes me laugh. Or my latest thing that I've been enjoying is this TikTok and watching some of the little mini videos that they have, because it makes me laugh. And it's so much better than being on Twitter and listening to the battering going back and forth. Sometimes you got to know it's okay to unplug from that. It's okay. It's okay. Unplug from it sometimes so you can keep your own sanity and your own peace of mind. Back in the 90s, there was a movie. I'm pretty sure it was called Life is Beautiful. It was an Italian movie. They had subtitles in it. Actually won some pretty big awards. But the pretense of the movie was a storyline about a man that was, I think he was Jewish, and he had a son that was half Jewish, and they ended up in a concentration camp. I think they were Italian and somehow Jewish. I forget the exact pretense of their background, but anyhow, as they were going through this journey, the father actually created an imaginary world in which, while living in this hell on earth, the son was able to perceive it in a different way. And although that may not be realistic in real life, there were definitely some lessons that we can all learn from that movie. In fact, I should definitely pull that out and watch that again. It was very inspiring and standing true to often what we do as parents to try to shelter our kids. But sometimes we fall short of being able to buffer them from some of the harsh realities of how life is. And then they come to understand these truths. And as that happens, start to teach them things that they can do to be joyful in that moment of struggle, of finding a way to dance during the storm, of finding a way to lean into their faith and realize there's a plan, and you don't necessarily have to know all the answers. But to do something for somebody else can be a blessing that can remove your mind from your negative circumstances. Doing things like that, or also stop looking at self-care as a chore or a luxury. It's a necessity. You've got to nourish your mind, your body, and your spirit for you to be able to do the things that you want in this life, And I'm hoping that all of you find the time to prepare so that as storms happen, you have these tools ready and in your arsenal so you know what to turn to instead of turning to things like drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, self-sabotage, anger, bitterness, jealousy. Fill in the blank. We all have a choice. And if you're not really prepared on equipping yourself with good choices, Sometimes you can lead into these bad habits that become self-sabotaging and not worthy of who you are. But if you take the time to celebrate these little milestones, it can create joy within you that can become a payoff, like with a residual effect onto you and all the people around you. And it keeps building. It's like compound interest. It's a beautiful thing. You put a little bit in there and you get a little bit more back. So I'm hoping that you get an abundance of that in this year. So start stocking up on all that self-love and start stocking up on celebrating and living life a little bit more and not allowing that negativity to seep in, you know. It's just in a fleeting moment you can have, a minute of being happy and then something chaotic can happen. So while you have your moments that are good, really, really dig in. But when the storms happen, back it up and remember to celebrate life. It's so short, but it's so sweet, isn't it? And I'm hoping you're finding all the sweetness. And as our wonderful John Lennon said, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. So I hope that all the plans that you're making are just filled with some real joy. Go celebrate that goodness in life, you guys. All right. Remember baby steps. They're so wonderful. We can always start over again when we mess up. When we screw up and we diverted from our path, that's okay. Go back and give it another try. That's all right. Life is good. And so is God. Every single day, I wish you peace. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure that you do so now. You can find us over on Facebook at Kudos Magazine. You can also find us at YouTube at Cup of Kudos.